You take over.
Thank you very, very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to all of those who are watching our live stream. I want to begin with a Happy New Year to everybody who is watching and wish you the very best of a new year and the best of health and prosperity as we move forward. Members of the board, we have one formal presentation from Mr. Corella this evening, followed by an agenda review, and at 6:30, we have to call a stop to have a very brief, non-mandatory, but we thought it was important to have a very brief public hearing for anyone who wanted to weigh in on raising our debt ceiling to borrow for capital projects. And members of the board, we also this evening will need an executive session, and I'll get into the details and reasons permissible under executive session laws for that executive session at the appropriate time. But having said that, I want to introduce Mr. Corella, who is going to do a little foreshadowing for you. He's done an analysis of our summer programs, and you might be saying, summer programs? We just got done shoveling, but we need to start planning now. And some of the recommendations he's going to make that I've accepted are, I wouldn't say magnanimous in effect, but there are some changes that I'd like you to hear about this evening. So, Rick, would you take it away?
Certainly. Hello, everyone. I'm going to start by taking a look back at 2022 and just briefly remind you of the programs that we floated this past summer. I'll give you a look at what our attendance was, what the costs were, and some important funding considerations that we have to think about for future years. So here, I'm not going to read the entire chart to you. You can see what it is, and you've heard, if you look at the left column, you've heard me many times describe what we offer for our students each summer. There's ELP, the Camp Wolverine, there are the credit recovery programs. Our P-TECH program is growing, so we've had additional camps for the students that are in that grant program, as well as some other related costs. If you look at that chart in total, as we move over from the programs, look at the attendance column. The attendance column is part of what is motivating us to look at some possible changes. Despite a lot of really good diverse offerings, our student attendance was somewhat lackluster this summer, and it has been. That's a trend that has been continuing. Some of these numbers are a bit deceptive because those numbers reflect the students that attended the program at least once, but they're not reflective of what the average daily attendance was, which would be much lower than that. The next column is the funding source, and so you can see here that the American Rescue Plan Act, we used full advantage of that this summer because it will expire at some point, and summer programming or extending the academic school year for students is one of the allowable activities under that act. You also see Title III in there, but for the most part, we used ARP to kind of offset the costs for this year and save ourselves some funds from our other sources. The expensed column shows what each program's total cost was, and that is everything except busing. It does also not include materials, which are typically minimal for the summer programs. Over the years, we have purchased items and program curricula that we use, and we use them again and again. So these are mostly the labor costs, and you can see that they're quite high for some of the larger programs. And there are also included in here the costs for administering the August regents. And part of the reason that totaled over $36,000 is when we planned our summer programming and posted for the created the calendars, posted for the teachers and other staff to work them. At that time, we didn't know whether the Board of Regents was going to have August Regents. They had been canceled for the last several rounds, and many people thought that they would be canceled again in the summer of '22. That turned out not to be the case, so we had to reconfigure and extend the employment of many of our staff members at the high school and prep level to make sure that we were able to give those exams. And you can see that we administered 637 total exams. So the total bill for last summer was $872,000 and change. Yes, Russ?
Rick, I'm assuming some of these students might be in more than one category?
Yes. For example, the kids, yes and no. It's not frequent. Where you're going to see it most is the Summer Sports and Enrichment Camp is designed as an afternoon activity for kids who receive their credit recovery at the prep and high school level in the morning. So many of the kids go to the high school if they're at the prep level, they take their courses, and then they stay at the high school, have lunch, and then go to that program.
Because, I'm looking at, you got about 2,000 students there, if I did the math right. That doesn't look too bad, but you're saying if you came once, you're in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do we filter that out? Is there a way to give us information like?
Well,
more than five?
that would be difficult for the high school program because it was remote, and a lot of the instruction is asynchronous. We could do that for the ELP program, and I do have the daily attendance report, so I could show you how many students were typically there on any given day.
Just to get.
That's the total enrollment. Now, interestingly, when I get to my recommendations for that program, for ELP in particular, we had over 1,000 students registered, but only 547 actually enrolled, and there were fewer than 400 that attended on most days.
And one other question. Do we recommend to students that need extra help, do we recommend they go?
Yes.
Do we track?
We do a lot of aggressive marketing, and when I get into the other recommendations,
Maybe I should wait.
yeah, and I'll just mention to you
No,
some
that's
of
right.
the
I'll wait.
things that we've learned and seen. We surveyed our district parent group to ask them what they thought of our summer programming, and they gave us some reasons for that could be impacting our attendance. So I tried to weave those into our recommendations, as well as we talked to several of our partners, including the Boys and Girls Club, that provides some of the afternoon programming for ELP. And so they deal with parents at multiple sites, and they told us some of the barriers that our programming presents to a lot of the families that rely on them all summer long. So I tried to address those when I looked at reconfiguring things. So if I don't hit any of those points or answer any of those questions, let me know. No problem. So here are some funding considerations that we need to be aware of for future summers. Some of our current and past funding sources either are no longer available to us, or they'll expire within a few years, or they've been reduced over time. In other words, our funding has gone down. For example, in Title I, which is one of the ESSA-funded programs, our district allotment has decreased slightly over the last couple years, and that concerns me because I want to make sure that what we have is sustainable, and we don't have to all of a sudden pull the rug out from under our kids and families by canceling something that we find out that we can't afford. So I'm trying to, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm trying to foresee into the future what would be a meaner, leaner, more sustainable way to go. So some of the things that are no longer available. The 21st Century Elementary Extended School Day Grant, which we had had for several years, when it was time to reapply for the last round, we did not get refunded. That was a large hit because that is a fairly big grant that provides both summer and after-school programming throughout the year. Our school improvement grant for those of our schools that are in improvement status, and you've heard me talk about that before, along with that designation comes some extra funding, but over the last few years, they have tightened the rules around that, and they have told us that we can no longer use it for certain items. In the past, I had been using it, in particular at the grade 7 and 8 level, to fund summer credit recovery as a whole district initiative. We're no longer able to do that. And then, as I mentioned, Title I. We have a couple of other grants that we've relied on heavily. I mentioned the American Rescue Plan, which will sunset eventually, as well as the Empire Extended School Day Grant. That's an elementary grant that encompasses 4 of our schools. That grant was set to expire in June or August, I'm not sure which. But we actually did get that extended for 1 year. We were just notified, I think within the last month, that that will expire in 2024. But just, I'm trying to be cognizant of all of those. So looking ahead, both at the financial picture and at what we've had as far as successes with the summer programs and challenges like attendance, I talked to the superintendent about about going through the process of retooling a little bit. So in order to do that, I mentioned that we surveyed our parent group to find out their perspectives. I also met several times with the Boys and Girls Club, which plays a major role over the summer, and our administrators and teachers who run the summer programs. I wanted to get their insights about successes and challenges and ask them to weigh in on changes that they would make or that they would recommend that the superintendent consider. So I'm going to go program by program, and I'm not going to read everything on the slide. I just want to give you the gist of it to kind of make sure that we have the context here. On the left, I put the way that the program ran in 2022, what its components profile was, and then what we're recommending for 2023. In 2022, ELP was a 5-week, 20-day program. We had 2 sites. The afternoon was run by the Boys and Girls Club, as well as many different outside agencies that we coordinated as a district to bring in to provide enrichment activities. And a couple of notes, a couple of things that we've learned, those last 2 bullets there on the left. The ELP enrollment has remained constant since 2016, regardless of how we've embellished or reworked the program. We've had it as a half-day program, we've had it as a full-day program, we've had 2 sites, we've had 3 sites, we've offered different things in the afternoon. We've started recruiting earlier and earlier. We've advertised it in different ways. We've digitized the registration process. We've done a lot of things to try to make it easier, but we haven't moved the needle one bit in the actual attendance. Every summer, between 400 and 450 kids attend regularly, and that has not changed, regardless of what the program looks like. And then what we're hearing consistently is that our 4-day-a-week setup is a challenge for parents because that leaves them with Fridays where they have to scramble for childcare. And what we originally thought, and it still holds true in some cases, is that the 4-day-a-week program would be enticing for parents and families because that would give the kids a long weekend It would give staff a long weekend and would give them more time to do the typical summer activities. But from what we're hearing, it's more of a detriment than not. So what we're recommending for 2023 is a 3-week, 15-day program. So shortening it up, but having it be 5 days a week. Having it operate out of one site. I would recommend Cataract because it has the space. It has the adjoining community center, which we can use in the afternoon for our enrichment activities. And it's in the center, it's in the center of the city. And also, having one site as opposed to two would enable us to populate our classes at all the grade levels in a more efficient manner. What happens now is we might have 12 students in a 5th grade class in Site A and only 7 students in a class at Site B. Well, those could be combined. So we would be much more efficient, we would save funding, and we wouldn't lose anything by being more efficient that way. The other thing that we would like to do, if possible, is bring in latchkey and to extend the day till 5 or 6 p.m. The Boys and Girls Club is willing to do that as part of our annual contract with them, and then that would hopefully make it easier for parents with childcare challenges. It would provide a place for their children to go 5 days a week, and it would not necessitate a 3 p.m. pickup or a parent meeting a bus at 3:30 p.m. when most parents work till 4:30, 5, even 5:30. So that addresses a lot of the parent concerns that we had. It also addresses the concern of the commitment being too broad. And what I mean by that is 5 weeks is a lot of time, and a lot of families said, well, we would rather like to weave other activities, other family things in over the summer, and 5 weeks is too long a commitment. We would rather have it would be more desirable if it were shorter. The other thing that would help, that would be very advantageous for us too, is we have a very dedicated staff that likes to work that program. Cutting it down slightly would also allow them to take advantage of other professional development and other learning activities that the district sponsors over the summer. Right now, we continue to do those kinds of things, but we often have conflicts where teachers will say to me, can you repeat that again in late August because I'm teaching ELP and I won't be able to attend, but I'd really like to. This will take care of that to an extent and give us a little more flexibility. And so we're hoping to try that out. At the prep school level, we've included students in grades 6, 7, and 8 over a 5-week, 20-day program. These students were always in person at Niagara Falls High School. They would attend classes in the morning, and many would go to the sports enrichment camp in the afternoon, or others would go home. What we noticed is the last couple of years, attendance has been going down, and our 6th grade attendance, or in other words, students who are transitioning out of 6th grade into 7th, we have always included them in that program for an extra push, but their attendance has been very poor, and it was very poor this year. And what we're hearing is that is in part due to the fact that they really aren't middle school or prep school students yet. They don't have the full picture of what it means or why it's necessary to make sure that you pass all your courses. They're not in that headspace yet. And some of their families, if those children are their oldest children, really aren't there yet either. The 8th grade attendance, on the other end, is much better because students understand that they need to get their house in order before they transition to high school. So there's this huge gulf in our attendance patterns. So what we're suggesting is excluding sixth graders from this program and instead dedicating funding for each prep school to run a multi-day transition camp full of activities for all sixth graders transitioning into seventh grade. They could do a variety of different things. Even if our transportation provider would be able to do this, they could even do practice bus runs, because a lot of districts do that in kindergarten, but in our district, a lot of our students don't take a bus until seventh grade. So there's still the need to do those kinds of dry runs and get kids up and running, and it could make for a much smoother start to the school year. Just one of the advantages that we talked about. I met with the leadership teams at each of those buildings, Prep and Gaskill, and they were very interested in doing this. And so that recommendation was well received by them. And then we have a couple of other recommendations, which one is to reduce the amount of special programming that we've built in over the past couple of years following the pandemic, and instead having kids come for just the older kids for just the courses that they require, and seeing if possible we could have a mid-morning dismissal if a student only needs 1 or 2 classes. We've done that in the past. I don't know if that is feasible, but it's something that we'll leave on the table for now. And then the other thing, which will start off our high school slide, is this year, knowing that we will have August Regents exams, we will do our calendar so that the exams are subsumed under the program calendar, so that we don't have to rehire or extend staff commitment in order to administer the exams, get the exams scored, and have the manpower to make that work. So this year we'll be prepared to make it part of the program. At Niagara Falls High School, as I mentioned earlier, that program was a fully remote program, and there were some reasons for that. What we have learned at this point is that we will likely need to keep that format for the next couple years due to the fact that the number of students who need credit recovery for at least one course is very large, too large to do an in-person program. Instead, what we're working on is placing a greater emphasis on and providing the high school with the tools and the time to get credit recovery done for some students during the school year, so they don't finish in June with a course failure, that they pass more courses. Therefore, we need less summer programming. This isn't something we should be in the mindset that we're not growing summer programming at this level. We should be doing everything we can to get kids to pass when they're in school full time from September to June. Yes, Tony.
So you're about to approach that after 3 o'clock?
That's one of the options, and another option is they now have an academic study hall, and we're looking at how can we use that in a really smart way to have kids begin to make up work. And one of the ways that we're doing that is using technology through our Learning Technology Grant. And Mr. Laurie, as I was looking at as I was getting this ready, I think sometime later this year, we're in year 2 of that grant, we are creating digital courses that teachers can use to help kids get credit recovery and make it up during the school year. I'd like to present to the board with our tech integrators and some of our lead teachers from that grant about what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think you would find it interesting, and it kind of flips the whole mindset. What we're doing is creating a whole cache of digital tools that are created by our teachers and monitored by our teachers, so that if a student really, let's say they've stumbled the first 20 weeks of school, but they have the ability to pull it together, make up lost time, redo some key units, and get back on track to pass by June, we should be concentrating on those students in January. Now, these digital tools will help our teachers do that in an expeditious manner so that it's not so labor intensive. We'll have modules ready that if I'm an English teacher, I can say to a student, Rick, you failed your first 20 weeks. I need you to make up these modules. We can change your grade. You can do the work in academic study hall, and I'll be available at certain times to help you, and you can recover that lost credit so that summer school is not, going to have to necessarily be your fate. So we're trying to kind of flip that whole thing.
Absolutely. I'd love for you to show, or the integrators, show the board one online course that the kids are taking, or two.
Yes.
Secondly, I think it's important to note for the board and the listening public, we received a $98,000 grant to create those courses, and we didn't go to a shelf and buy a program. We went to our teachers to create out of their curriculum a course. So we're doing it in-house, and those teachers would monitor that recovery. And thirdly, I really like what you said. That is a program we should be not growing, we should be decreasing by more kids getting their work done during the school year. So that's the philosophy we'd like to take with that.
Yeah, I know that our tech integrators would really look forward to
I'd love for the
showing off
board
the work.
to see
Yeah.
what it looks like, so they have a feel for, and I don't even have a feel for, what is the rigor and expectation for an online course to get credit recovery?
Yeah, we will show that.
Okay.
So what this doesn't have a lot of change to it, only because it's so necessary. The graduation rate is nothing to be toyed with. There's just so much that we have to provide. But what we would want to do is to prioritize offering the Regents courses. We definitely want to continue the in-person academic support component. So we kind of have a hybrid model going where our most fragile students can come into the building and work with a teaching assistant when they really need to kind of sit knee to knee with someone to keep them on track. So we're going to continue that safety net. And we also need to pay attention to students who are almost there as 12th graders, but need key courses. We'll never be able to take out, for example, PE, health, and some of the classes that get kids over the hurdle and get them to be August graduates, like our government and economics course, and sometimes English falls into that category. Oftentimes it seems silly, but they're missing like their PE or health credit. So we still have to keep an eye on whatever we have to offer, so that the kids who come here in August to get their diplomas will continue to be able to do so. So we're not going to let them fall off the radar there. And then these remaining programs here, we're not recommending major changes to these. Just one thing that we would like to do is actually expand Camp Wolverine. We would align the calendar for all of these, certainly, but we have a group of special needs students for whom we don't really have a good program. We have many different programs, but we have some IEP students who don't fit neatly into what we currently offer. So we would like to add a program that's designed especially for students who are in special class settings but do not have a 12-month IEP and have extended school year programming. That's kind of our gap. So we would like to address that, certainly. The summer sports and enrichment camp, we would like to keep that going. We have a pretty good sense of what the most popular courses in sports are. We would probably want to drop one or two low enrollment sports. And then the ENL enrichment camp was very successful on a lot of different levels, so we want to keep that going.
And bowling is still on the table, Rick?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. I don't want to say which sport is in our sites, but it may have to do with FIFA. I don't know.
Yeah, FIFA. I tried to push bowling, but Rick resisted, not me. Go ahead, Rick. Is this your last slide?
This is the last slide. I wanted to show you what the potential impact would be. So I took a look at changing each of these staffing needs, and to the best of my ability, I predicted and went a little bit higher, somewhat overestimated what the cost would be if we enacted all of these changes. So, I mean, it's still certainly a good chunk of change, but it would go down about $300,000. And we would still be able to offer everything, and nothing would be off the table. We would just be, leaner and meaner, and then we, of course, would take another look at it again, and reevaluate if some of the changes were not successful.
So Rick, that's also with your 3-week, 5-day-a-week cohort?
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
that'd be in the first line.
Yes, and the costs for example, high school didn't go down all that much, but there's I had to weave in the Regents administration there. And we have to be careful with how many adults we have on hand. We have to have so many proctors. We need so many people to score the exams and turn them around in the right time frame. So I was trying to make my best estimate of exactly what that would cost, because I don't want to come back to the superintendent later and say, oh, I'm sorry, I was off by $150,000.
Yeah, that's what Earl does, and it doesn't work out well. Earl Smeal. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's all funded by the grant. That's really, really going very, very well.
It's just taking off like incredibly, and we're going to hit our 150th student this summer.
Beautiful.
So, and I'll give you more information about that. I just wanted to conclude with a couple things and certainly allow your questions. The point is we are having summer programs. We did need to take a strong look on our return on investment. I know that sounds like a business model when you're dealing with kids, but we have to be smart and efficient with our money. And Rick did that in the vein of also listening to parents and staff. Finally, Rick alluded to a couple times, one of our big sources is ARP. We can get through this summer and maybe next summer, and then ARP is gone. And I think what I've heard this board say, or members of this board say, is you want to use ARP money for one-shots as much as you can. So this, not that these are one-shots, but if we have to modify it, we can because of the loss of ARP. And finally, you may say, it's January 5th and we're shoveling. Why are we talking about summer programs? We're talking about it for a couple of reasons. One, we want you to know we did the study. Two, we need to start articulating, and there could be tweaks to this, articulating to the staff what the programs are. And finally, we need to put postings out to start hiring staff to work, because it has become more and more of a challenge to get staff to work. And we wanted you to see it before we released it, start talking about it, putting postings out. But for the staff who may be watching or will watch this on replay, we will be having all of the programs. They'll be tweaked a little bit in their delivery, but we're still going to need to hire a lot of staff, our own staff, and we're still going to offer kids the full complement of activities, albeit in some slightly changed ways. So that's the reason why we're bringing it to you now, and we'll start articulating and publishing this as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
We have time now, I believe, and if it takes longer than 6:30, I'll pause, but we do have time to review your agenda for the 18th. These will be the items that you're asked to vote on. You can leave that one up right first. First, and I'll jump right in, that at 6:30 we'll call a halt. Becky and I and the construction team will go through some capital projects. According to our bond counsel in New York City, we do not need to have a public hearing on this, but I thought it would be good to do it in case there is somebody in the public that wants to speak about what we're doing, and also to clue them in on the upcoming vote and why and what they're voting on. So you will have a call to order, and then I'll give an overview along with Becky, and then if there's anyone who could speak, they can speak, and if not, we'll move on. But that's the agenda for the 6:30 meeting. Ray, if you'd go to the next agenda. This week, that is next meeting, Becky and Julie begin their budget tour. We're going to present to you our first look at the 23-24 school budget with as much information as we have this early. The governor does not give her state of the address until next Tuesday, and then usually it's a week or so, 2 weeks until budget runs come out. So it's going to be that gradual dripping process through March. But I did want Becky and Julie to do that. We'll review the agenda. And remember, members of the board, this night you have to have 2 meetings, one at 7 and one at 8. The 8 o'clock meeting will be to certify the results of that budget vote. Thanks, Ray. We then have your regular agenda meeting. Remember, board members and those listening, this meeting is on Wednesday, not Thursday. Why Wednesday? Because I believe the statute says that within 24 hours of the close of the poll, you as a board have to certify the results. You also do this in May. If you remember, we meet the elections on a Tuesday and you meet on Wednesday. So the same formula holds true. We have no bids this month. Let's stay true to form and ask Maria to come forward at this point with distribution and commentary on your certificated and classified reports that you will be seeing for the first time. Remember, members of the board, you're not voting on these this evening. You do have 13 days to question myself or Maria on anything that you read or anything that you want to know about. And that we hope that that will be enough time. I'm sure she's going to tell you and ask for your permission to add asterisk items, but we'll see what she says tonight. We'll see what she says.
Question mark. If after the vote,
Yeah.
the vote, of course, is good for our capital improvement, when are we looking at submitting or letting the bids out?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind,
Accepting bids.
if you wouldn't mind, I'll talk about that during the hearing.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, here we are. January 2023, if you look at the certificated report, we've received a retirement of a special education teacher. We also have received the resignation of a teacher at Abbott. We have a probationary appointment of a special education teacher and the appointment of a regular substitute to take over for the teacher who resigned.
That's pretty good work to be able to, unfortunately, accept some resignations and then fill. Especially impressive as a special ed teacher that quickly.
Yes, we were very pleased to be able to do that. Right now, we have no 60-day conversions. By your next meeting, we will have 2 for you. So as Mr. Laurie mentioned, we will be asking for asterisks. We have an involuntary transfer of a speech teacher that was to balance some caseloads, leave of absence, and then you'll see our per diem work, our TRC courses. You'll see the TRC is very busy. We hope to come to you by next meeting with the recommendation for a new TRC director. We just held our interviews yesterday, but haven't had a chance to meet with Mr. Laurie on that yet. And then we have some per diem and Schedule B work that'll take you all the way up through page 5 of 7. Then we begin with our winter coaching position, Schedule C, toward the bottom of page 5 of 7. And then some schedules D, E, F, and G, which brings you to the page 7 of 7. Are there any questions regarding this at this time?
I fully intend to recommend someone on your report for the Teacher Resource Center that will take over July 1st.
Correct.
Even though there will be some onboarding time, the current director, I'll say it because it's not secret, Mrs. Wagaman is retiring, and Maria and the Teacher Resource Center board members, along with Rick, Ray, and the union interviewed yesterday. I just haven't heard the results of that. But I will make a decision by then.
Okay, moving on to the classified staff. We had a retirement of a Secretary 1 and we had the retirement of a porter. And those all occurred during our winter break. And then you'll see some resignations of a classroom associate, a library associate, and a nurse. We are working on we've already replaced the library associate because that person hasn't been in some time. We're working on replacements for the porter and the nurse. We put out postings today.
I just want to say something about the nurse, because that on this side of the house, the nurse, much like the school psychologist, is a tough position to fill. One of the things that the district we've had to do is really increase the number of nurses in our nursing cadre, because we have many more medically fragile children. And not in this case, but we really are. That is another area that we often really have to search and find, and those are school nurses. It's a wonderful job if anybody's listening. It's a wonderful job.
We're also going to be coming to you very shortly with a proposal for 2 12-month nurses.
Yeah.
We're also going to be
Well, it's timely that you say that. Based on Rick's proposal, we have to have nurses on during the summer, and we think that by putting 2 of the nurses to 12 months, it can help with some of the paperwork that needs to get done, help us with opening school most smoothly, especially with regard to medication, can service the 10 programs that Rick lays out, and gets us a real consistent, well-oiled medical staff during a very fragile time, as well as the fact that we have already put forth 3 12-month cooks.
Correct.
So we have 3 cooks who work all year. And that all those programs Kevin works with to provide food.
We have some folks who've asked for leave of absence. One of those is to take employment out of the district, and the other 2 are just minimal time being requested away from work. The change of status you'll see are the bulk of what you see so far in the classified report. This is just proof of the massive amount of hiring we did at the beginning of the school year. This year, these folks are now becoming permanent in their positions, and that is because they've served the length of their probationary period on the classified side. So that's why you're seeing such a large number of change of status. And we will have some additional ones to present to you as well.
What is the length of that probationary period?
It's the 3-month period.
3 months.
For these particular employees.
Thank you.
And then next is the additional hours. And those additional hours are just for some nursing and after-school programming. And again, there will be some additions to this report. Hopefully, we'll have a nurse and a porter to present to you, and we'll have some additional change of status as well.
I just want you to just, if you may, just to alert the board, because we are less than 2 weeks away from approving it, and we will be going into executive session to discuss contracts protected by Taylor law, but there may be 2 addendums for contracts as well. Is that correct?
Yes, there'll be 2 addendums to the certificated report, if all meets with your approval this evening.
Right.
Any questions?
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We can go through these short-term contracts. I always like to point out on this grid, they all begin with an F. That signifies that they are being paid for by a grant and not through your $165 million budget. These are grant form positions. The first 2 are restorative justice. They're with an organization called NARP. We've used them quite extensively. These were requested and being paid for out of the Teacher Center grant, and they are to help the 102 students in our Pathways to Excellence and the teachers associated. The SUNY Buffalo short-term contract is for assistive technology for some consultation for a child who needs this as a way to resolve a pending or hopefully not impartial hearing. Lomax Barnes has been doing work with us for quite a while, truancy, returning of laptops, etc. We did a very successful father and son program at Gaskill. 21 students were involved, and now we're going to replicate it at LaSalle. And finally, on the short-term contract, John Irwin is another teacher resource center course. It's an online presentation on classroom management, and you can see F2070 reflects the teacher resource center grant. We then morph into our usual Head Start reports, etc. We then have a number of resolutions, and I'm going to move quickly, but please stop me. The first 5 resolutions are grants that we received. $350,000 for extended school day, $59,221 for an immigrant grant. This helps with our English as new language students. $4,065,008 to run our universal pre-K programs, pre-K 3 and 4. $107,993 for our this is a special education grant, and $14,400 for mentor teachers. The Trinity United Methodist Women gave us $500 to purchase clothes and food and clothes with particular respect to the homeless. We'd like to recognize them. 607, 608, and 609, the complete resolutions are in front of you. The Eagle Eye Police Detective did catch, that's Mr. Cadella, in case you don't know who the Eagle Eye is. He did catch one change. We certainly want to make sure Chief Faso is recognized as the community member representing the police force. We do have the incorrect police chief on there. But this is to look at your code of conduct and your building level safety response teams. This is an annual requirement that we have to do. We ask the teachers union and the administrators union to appoint people to these committees, and we always involve the police and fire chief, as well as a couple of parents from our district parent committee, plus we're adding Chief Del Porto to that list too. And we will correct the police chief's name on the one resolution. 611 and 612. In order to provide our children occupational therapy and physical therapy, you contract with Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center. Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center in early December has asked for a rate hike for their employees. That's why these are amended contracts. Most of them are going up. I have the exact amount of dollars that they're going up, but you approved these at your reorganization meeting on July 1st-ish, but we're amending the rates of pay to Memorial Hospital for the services. They're all increasing anywhere between $15.39 all the way up to $38 for one of the services they provide. And I would say, in defense of this, everything is getting more expensive. The cost of the hospital labor is getting more expensive. I wish we could, we tried to hold them off till July, but we have to give this service to our kids. And those are the reasons for the between $15 and $38 rate increases in the middle of the year that will become effective February 1st. 613, I just wanted to let you know that our 2 new transportation directors started this week. Becky has been the guiding light with them. They're doing very well. They're getting indoctrinated in quite a bit of a hurry. Yesterday we met with the team from Niagara Falls Coach Lines. Tomorrow we're meeting with First Student. In order to onboard those individuals, we have been working with someone named Robert Jacobus. You have approved Robert's short-term contracts in the past. Robert is a skilled bus consultant that could help us become more efficient and will help Becky onboard our 2 new directors. Robert is also looking to recommend to something that Ray and myself and Becky agreed, a new product or a new portal called Route Hub, where instead of a million fax, texts, emails, phone calls, deliveries from the Pony Express, we have one portal where any change to routing goes through. It's called Route Hub, and we're looking to purchase that out of this agreement as well. We think it's worth it. It's no secret that transportation continues to be an area for multiple reasons that we struggle with. We're looking for his continued expertise. He is the gentleman that helped us reformat the bus routes when we went to sister schools, and worked closely with Richard and Ray. And he will be on retainer for us through July 30th to help our two new directors get up to speed, and also to implement some new technological advances to get information communicated. Those starting next week, we wanted them to work 1 week together, but starting next week, they will go to a staggered schedule. I believe, Becky, one director will start at 6:30?
That's correct. One will work 6:30 to 2:30, and the other will work 11 to 7.
They're off to a really nice start. They're really got a nice yin and yang to their personality. One is very much a go-getter and knows a lot of stuff because of her previous experience. The other gentleman is very analytical, was a shipping kind of manager, a supply chain kind of a manager, and they have a real nice rapport going. So we have had a good first week with our directors. If you move down, we have payments to make. Those payments are 614. This money comes out of capital projects. It is a $15,677.66 payment for drinking fountains. Chris, are the drinking fountains all in? How many are we short?
Well, we have 27 installed, but we're working on the final number.
Okay, I believe 40 is the final number.
The rough final number.
Okay, so this is a payment to MLK. 615 is to pay Ferguson Electric for their smart schools work. These are the cameras. This is the retainage we held back on the Smart Schools Bond Act, but Ray has given authorization to say the cameras are all working. They're up to snuff. Chris Dowling again worked with Ray to make sure. Chris certified that too, that all the new cameras are in, and we really need to pay Ferguson off. So we're releasing their retainage or recommending that to you. I believe I'm on 616. That is a $26,907 payment to UNS. They are also involved in our camera work. The money comes from Smart Schools. And 617 is, I'm not sure technically if we need to do this, but I want to wear belt and suspenders, as does Becky and Earl. We had a Monday evening when I'm just finishing my lunch break around 8 o'clock at night. We got a, thanks Earl Paul for getting it. We finishing my lunch break at 8, I get a call from Earl. It's usually not good. I look outside, there's no snow, and he tells me we've got a big water leak in the parking lot at Abbott School. Earl received immediate response from the water board, I have to say. Secondly, he received immediate response from Swanson, who has done a lot of our work, and he received a really big heads up from one of our maintenance workers who heard about this before he could even get there. So working together, we didn't miss 5 minutes of school at Abbott. This is an emergency resolution to pay Swanson for the work they've done. By 6:30 the next day, it was patched, ready to go, and it just inconvenienced 2 people's parking spots. So it was pretty good work, Earl, and I don't know if you want to mention anything else.
No, other than it was Tuesday night.
Oh, I get, thanks for always correcting me. I get my nights mixed up. I'm usually working most of the evenings.
I know. It blends all into one. Dan Latier, who's an extremely conscientious employee, has a hobby of listening to the police scanner, and he called me somewhat sheepishly, and he's like, "Boss, I don't think you want to hear this, but you better go check it out." And he was spot on. By the time I got there, the police had the road closed, and 11th Street was flooded at Lockport Street where they cross. So it was kind of ugly, but you know, again, thanks to the fast response of Mike Igler of the Water Board and his crew, and the good people at J.R. Swanson, we were up and running at 5:40 a.m., had the air bled out of the system and was flushing all the flush valves and checking the RPZs in the building, and we were up and ready for the cooking staff.
So we didn't miss an hour, but this was an unforeseen emergency, and we want to officially ask you to approve the payment, which was already made, but we did try to tell you. I was checking out the RVZs at 5:25 in the morning as well, but I don't know what they were, but I was doing that. Ray, if you scroll up, our February meetings are on the 9th and the 23rd. I want to make one point about the 9th. Ray is going to take over that meeting with his technology team, because that's the evening he's going to recommend to you the purchase of over 400 new interactive boards. I don't want to speak for him, and I'll let him make the presentation, but he started with the committee, not just Ray, the teachers, administrators, tech people, started with 9 choices. I think they whittled it down to 5, and now Ray and the team are down to 2 different choices. I don't really want to get into much of the scoring yet, because there's still two choices that are being weighed by Ray and the team. But that recommendation will come to you on the 9th. The money to purchase all those interactive boards is in this year's budget, so we will need to get that done. And then the 23rd, both days, Becky and Julie will update you on the budget. And then, of course, on the 23rd, I'm sure, knowing that that's the penultimate day before a very big holiday, we'll add one other topic. I'm not sure if anybody wants to mention the holiday, but kids will have school that day. Earl, what is it? No, see, it's my birthday, Earl. Never mind. See.
You giving them a day off?
No one gets the day off.
Nice.
Mr. President, members of the board, that's what we're asking you to consider in 2 weeks. We do have 2 weeks to talk about these, ask questions, vet them closer. I know we had an error in one, we'll correct, but that's what we plan to present to you for your approval at that date. Mr. President, that's all we have. If you are interested in starting the public hearing, we're ready.
Sure. Any questions on it? Any questions? Comments? Okay. Saying that, would everyone please stand? We'll call the public hearing to order, and on raising the debt limit for capital projects. We'll start with the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Judy, no, I'm sorry, we was someone who wants to say the prayer. You're up, Earl. Thank you, appreciate it.
Good.
Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, I come to you, God. Thank you for allowing us to gather here, God. I ask that you be in our midst, that we do the work for the people and our students, God. I thank you for allowing us to make it to a new year, God, and I ask that you continue to lead us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Good job.
Thanks, Earl. Judy, call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass.
Present.
Mr. Bilson.
Excused.
Mr. Kinsemi.
Excused.
Mr. Capizzi.
Excused.
Mrs. Dunn.
Excused.
Mr. Cadella.
Here.
Mr. Pareto.
Here.
Mr. Velardo. And Mr. Petrosi.
Here.
5 present.
Thank you. Mark, I'll turn it over to you and our
Sure.
companies.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Petrosi, members of the board. Members of the viewing public, We're asking you to remember that on Tuesday, January 17th, between the hours of noon and 9 at your normal polling sites, the 22 polling sites, we're asking you to make a determination for this board as to whether you give them permission to raise the constitutional debt limit for the purpose of bonding money to improve our schools with $29.3 million of capital projects. And I'm just going to ask Becky to come to the podium to help me with this. Chris Dowling and Tony Maselli are here from BCC, and our architect, Bill Zagrafis, is here from CPL in case there are any specific questions from the public or from a board member. But I am going to go through this rather quickly because members of the board, you have seen it, and members of the public, there are just some small changes. So that's the purpose of this public hearing. Okay, Ray? I just want you to see that all we're talking about this evening is the blue column. The ARP column is being paid for out of your ARP money. The blue column and the issues that correlate with that are the issues we're asking you to allow us to raise the constitutional debt limit on. The, I don't know what color that is, yellow, are already approved by the voters in their budget, and the stewardship project was approved maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we did that work. So I just want everyone to see the capital projects vote of the 17th only deals with issues in the blue column. Thanks, Ray. I want, yeah, sure. Can you go back, Ray? You're welcome, Earl. I wanted to mention this. We had a meeting today, Tony. We had a meeting today. I'm looking at Tony, who was present for the meeting. We met with 7 building trades unions, and it's been the stance of this board and the belief that I have as superintendent to use a project labor agreement, meaning that we use union labor in the school district and on this board. Why? Our history has shown us that we have better safety records, we get a very solid product, and we are always able to get alternatives or cost savings in. There is a PLA study that will show you on the $29.3 million worth of work, we're going to be able to save 3% on that total, which will allow us to put more projects in or do more things because of the savings. So just for everyone's edification, that in this project alone, $11 million, 11 and change, will go to local union labor. These are the same local union laborists who live in our community and send their children to our schools. It is, as I said, a 3% savings. It varies a little bit from project to project, and I think a little bit of that is dependent on the size of it. This is not as big as the 13 or 17 project, but this labor project agreement will carry on till 25 or 26 and cover all outside work that we do. Okay? The project is called The Breath of Fresh Air. It's kind of a cute, catchy title, thought up by Richard Schwartfager to make him feel like he was part of the project, but a lot of it is dealing with HVA systems. We are constructing our first greenhouse. This greenhouse is at Belaniva Bond Primary School. It will be next to the school. You can see a pretty brief rendering of what it will look like. It's a 12-month greenhouse. It will be used by the kids and the community, and it will be supported as well as if you approve this, it will be supported by incentives, and it will be open to the public and the community. And Bill, I want to thank you from CPL for being a real instrumental part in helping us design this. I also want you to know that the teachers at Bond School have been the leading force in designing this greenhouse. But it's the first of what I hope will be 3 more greenhouses, not for this project, but we'd like to do another one maybe at Abbott, Gaskill, and Niagara Falls High School. This is an area of growing good things for our kids. Yes, sir. Yes, he can. So if, I can't promise that if it passes, because I can't tell anybody how to vote, but there will be a tomato section to increase the sauce production.
San Maranzano.
Yeah, the sauce production.
Yes.
Before I get in trouble, Ray, go on. We talked about an athletic, it's more than an athletic, this is a bit of a misnomer, viewing public and listeners. It's more than an athletic hall of fame. It's a, and we'll get a better title of this. It's a walk to recognize not only athletes who are Hall of Famers inside the school, but founders who have contributed to our school district and members of the armed services that we've lost. A place to memorialize them that worked or connected to the district. And unfortunately, we have lost some staff members and students that we'd like to recognize. I think the next slide, this is where we're still working on the design, but this is kind of what it looks like with some of your input. It'll be outside the field house, and it'll be lit up. This is a really nice slide where you can see the founders, the armed services wall where the young lady's looking, and then the other wall would be the Hall of Famer. Again, Bill, thanks to you and your team for helping us design and listening to some of the input from the board. We did hear about the design from them and making it large enough to add additional names to it. This is huge. A major cost in this project is to air condition our final 2 schools. I think so, and some happy students. We will now have all 11 schools, and it's kind of funny, Rick talks about using 1 school, but I know there are a lot of schools that want to use them during the summer program, but it's just impossible to do that with the heat of those buildings. And we are proposing, if this is to pass, air conditioning for Gaskill and LaSalle, which will make this district one of the first districts, I think, that has every single school that's now air conditioned. As important as all that is, that's grammatically correct, we know that we can't do anything without improving our safety. We have talked about increasing and improving the safety, not only with our Raptor system and our Evolve system, but making double secured vestibules. So any visitor guest will have to be buzzed in twice before they can enter our building. And that includes a window that if you're just dropping off Mr. Smeal's lunch, you don't need to enter the school. If you're just taking out Mr. Paretto's note to get out of gym, you could pass it through there. So every single one of our schools, as well as our Community Education Center and our 24th Street Head Start, which will be paid for out of separate budget stream, we will be placing secured vestibules, 14 in total, including this administration building, where we do get quite a few visitors. That's an example of one. All new prox systems and cameras by those vestibules, door accesses. Okay. These doors are illustrative of the fact that we will, once the greenhouse is complete, we will have 224 more exterior doors that aren't usually normally used for entrances or exits. But we're asking you to consider raising the debt limit so that we could alarm every one of those 224 doors. If they were to be propped open, we would know about it and safety can get right to it. That's part of this project. This board's had a number of conversations about shuttered replacements. I think that Bill and team have addressed all of your issues about door swinging and things like this. Well, this is at the high school. I believe it's in 4 locations, Earl?
Yes.
We will be putting new shutter doors in 4 locations. The total amount that the voter would go to, the total amount that we anticipate this would cost is $29,342,500. Those are estimates. I'm very comfortable with those estimates. And in each of those estimates, there is a contingency that's included in there in case we were to exceed for whatever reasons. This is a timeline. Mr. Peretta was asking me this. If they approve the vote and you certify it the next day, it's our hope that we get this to SED in the spring. In my mind, the spring is May or April. Get that to SED. In the meantime, we will take a look and see what the flavor of the approvals is like. And as we've done in the past, we could put bid documents out on the street prior to state ed approving it. I'm talking about May and June, so that union companies could bid on this, and we wouldn't open those bids until we were approved. But in the summer, we may be asking you to approve construction companies or vendors to approve it and really get into this work as soon as possible. But again, that is the completion, and I just want to make this clear because we jokingly said there'll be happy teachers and students at LaSalle and Gaskill. I don't want to falsely promise them that they're going to have air conditioning this summer. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen this summer. It's a year from this summer out. So I want to be very explicit in saying that, oh yeah, no, it's a good year from this summer. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Becky, you want to take the last slide?
I sure will, thank you.
Especially, Beck, the last sentence below it.
Absolutely. Now, when the voters go to the polls, the unusual part is they're only going to be voting on this referendum. They're used to saying other things when they vote for the budget. The referendum is simply asking for permission for us to bond in the amount of $29,342,500. That's the maximum we would bond. And doing so would mean we would be exceeding our constitutional debt limit. That is based on a structured formula. It's in the state constitution and in state law. So we are able to do projects in excess of that, but it does require 60% voter approval to do so. And the constitutional debt limit is rather low, and we usually do have to exceed it every time we do a project. So it's very standard. But I do need to make voters aware so they're, informed when they go to the polls and they make good decisions.
So the one area that I probably haven't been strong enough on is the fact that it needs 60% of those voting on that day to say yes in order for us to proceed. If we get one vote less than 60%, then we have to reconnoiter and determine another course of action.
Correct.
So I've been lax in saying 60%. I may have even put out 50%. So I want to reiterate, we need 60% of the voters on that day. So an easy. I'm not the math wizard that Julie and Becky are, but if we had 100 voters, we would need 60 of those 100 voters to vote yes. If we had 59, it wouldn't pass. If we had any above 60, we would proceed. So it's important for those to remember that it is a vote. It is your right. I can't tell you how to vote. The purpose of this forum and our conversations is to tell the voters what they would allow this school district to do. There's one last piece of information that I would like to share with the voters, and then certainly entertain any speakers or any questions from the board. This will be paid for with a funding formula that allows us to get 98 cents back every time we spend one construction or labor dollar. Because of our poverty and because of the state formula, we will get back the following year 98 cents for every dollar. That begs one question: what about the other 2 cents? Which comes up to roughly 5,500. Is that right, what it was? About 550,000? Around 550. How are you going to pay for the $550,000? In previous years, I would say, we have a grant called Excel. We'll draw from that. We no longer have any Excel money left in that grant. That has all been spent in your previous projects. However, what a suggestion from the board was, which I think is a very good one, we would tap right into a pool of casino money that we have not touched in years and years and years and years and years because we didn't have it. We could go right to that funding source. My point, or some other funding source. My point in saying this to the public is that this will not impact your tax levy in any way, shape, or form.
It will not.
I don't know if you want to reiterate that, Becky. And casino was brought up by a member here, and I thought it was a good one. The other thing that Earl and team are going to work on, because of some of the projects in there are incentives and rebates. Earl, am I correct? Can you speak briefly to that?
We've already started working with a company called CJ Brown Energy, and they work for both National Grid and National Fuel Gas. And they're doing their best, reviewing the specifications for the equipment, to find us any and all National Grid or National Fuel or NYSERDA incentives for any of the HVAC improvements we're making.
So, Mr. Cattell did ask me a good question. The 98 cents, why? Our funding ratio on capital projects is 88 cents. It's 88 cents. Our high need status gets us an extra dime. That takes us to 98. The 2% can come through rebates, casino money, or any other mechanism. That's a formula figured out at the state level. Now, just to be very clear, that is paid for by taxpayer money. So it's not free money we're getting, but it's not coming from any budget that we have. The state of New York does this for every capital project in the state. And if it doesn't come to Niagara Falls, it will go to Nassau County or Oswego or some other county. Now, their funding number is far less than 98%. But the point is, the money's all the same taxpayer money. It's just that we're able to leverage it better, and you are going to pay your taxes. Despite the fact that we might not like to, you are going to pay your taxes. So that's why we believe, for the safety of our children, for the efficacy of our buildings, and keeping our houses in the best shape possible. And folks, I believe our buildings are in really good shape. We aren't perfect, but we're very, very, very good stewards of our buildings. This is something that I would like the voters to seriously consider. So, Becky, anything else to conclude?
No, and the funding, like you said, the casino and also Greenway funds are applicable to our 2%. So, and we get those annually, and that's the purpose of those funds.
Right.
So, and also just keep in mind that a safe and comfortable atmosphere takes all the worry away so students and faculty can focus on education.
And this board has done everything they could around safety. One meeting, 17 evolved lanes. One suggestion, the best director of security and safety you could find. Raptor systems put in. Again, anything can happen anywhere at any time. one thing I can say about this board is they have never blinked or questioned a measure for security. And I think that's evident by the fact that we have these in place and that other school districts frequently visit us or speak to our security director about it. Members of the board, if you want to call for public questions, Mr. Petrosi, you're a member of the board.
Yeah, anyone from the audience wish to speak on this item? Okay, questions from the board? May I ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing? Oh, question, I'm sorry, I didn't see it by,
Oh,
move to
sorry.
adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Paul, second by, Mike. Any questions? Call the roll, Judy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing adjourned.
Mr. Petrosi, member of the board, I have just a few updates, and unless you have questions, I will tell you about our reasons for executive session if you'd allow me to give you some updates. Next week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the PAC at Niagara Falls High School, our middle schoolers will put on the drama production of Willy Wonka.
Nice.
Right. We're just hoping that Earl Smeal gets the golden ticket, but the middle school students will be putting on Willy Wonka at the PAC at 7 o'clock. Next, I just wanted to make this publicly known, and it's not something that I'm happy to tell you, but it's something that I think is necessary. We have been approved to be a Narcan distribution district. I'm sorry to have to talk about this, but Narcan will be available through the nurses starting only at Niagara Falls High School if that's necessary. Dr. Joe did a magnificent job going through their approvals. I think it's irresponsible not to do that. God forbid we need to use it with quick thinking and quick action. Today, Dr. Joe ordered the supplies, which are, I think in the first round are free. Yeah, Mike.
Is this a national issue? Because I've seen a couple colleges in Alabama and some sort saying that.
It's a huge, huge, huge national issue.
So is this a federal government mandate? Or?
It's not a mandate. It's a willing step into it. And I feel it's irresponsible not to do it, at least at the high school level.
So a large majority are doing it?
Yes, more and more are.
Okay.
More and more are. But I want you to know, and I want the viewing public to know, under the trained direction of our nurse practitioner and nurses who will be trained, this will be available, God forbid, that it needs to be used at the high school.
Mark, because I've just been researching on it the last week, it is a spray,
Yes.
right? And no matter how much you can spray, it won't hurt the person. Like there's, right?
To the best of my understanding, yes.
Yeah, I mean, just
Yeah.
as a ballpark, that would be a correct statement, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Filardo?
Are the rest of the staff going to be trained in the use of this?
Yeah.
Narcan?
Yes. Let me, if I can morph into that?
Absolutely.
We are going to, and I am so happy with the news that we heard today about the Bills football player. I didn't get to watch everything, but not only Narcan, Mr. Velardo, and board members, I spoke to Dr. Joe before this meeting, and I know she's watching. We are going to do training in Narcan. We are going to go back and do training in the Heimlich, because unfortunately, twice a year, a staff member has been having to do the Heimlich, and we are going to do AED training for all of our staff. So that, we haven't done that in a while across the board, so we're going to...
Who's doing the training, Mark?
We're going to use everybody we can. We're going to use, we're going to ask the fire department, we're going to ask Tony Serace, who does it, we're going to ask Dr. Joe. What I want to do is sweep the entire district at one time. I think this is a critical thing that we revisit, and I certainly don't want to take the tragedy of Monday, but thankfully the gentleman is, the star football player seems better today, but certainly was a wake-up call to me. And I started thinking about our district, and have we done enough? Nothing else matters if our health isn't there. So yes on Narcan, but it's going to be coupled with Heimlich and AED. I just wanted to recognize Dr. Joe and Mr. Contento for something that they did today. In trying to be a trauma-informed district, which I hope we're moving closer and closer to becoming, even though I think we're in a really good place, we've asked that the coaches reach out to all of our football players, even though that affects all athletics. Our football players are on the field seeing what happened, and we want to make sure they're in a good place. So I wanted to thank Dr. Joe and Joe Contento for making that suggestion and following through on it. I now want to tell you something. I wanted to tell you about Russ's Christmas presents from Santa. Now, I wanted to tell you that I want to thank the staff for their rallying around Damar Hamlin, shirts, donations, collections. Saturday, before the 12:30 basketball game, there will be a toy drop-off and money collected. And while I'm sitting here, I received a text from Miss Villardo, and I'll read it to you, which I think it's really nice. There is a reporter from Cincinnati, Ohio, who would like to come to Niagara Falls High School and do a story about the kids at the high school and what they're doing to report on that. And she said, do I have the green light to approve this? And I said, yes, absolutely. So we'll have an out-of-town reporter at Niagara Falls High School tomorrow from Cincinnati reporting on the activities of the high school Friday and Saturday. And I will say this. When people write ridiculous articles about what kind of school district we have, I'm not sure where that gets factored in. It's called empathy, understanding, and caring. I'm not sure that I've ever seen the test for that, but no one told the staff and the students to do that. They just did it. So I think that's awesome. Speaking of which, our ongoing series with North Tonawanda and Niagara Falls High School will continue on January 19th. Our kids will go to North Tonawanda. They'll start with some fun roller skating. Then they'll go to Platter's Chocolates, where I will join them for a tour. And we are looking to have Mark Talley speak to the students there. Mark Talley's mom, Mrs. Talley, she passed away, and I can't think of her name. She passed away in the May 14th massacre and racial shooting, and Mark would like to come and speak to our kids. He's a good young man. He's a friend of a Niagara Falls High School teacher, and I'm going to have Mark talk to the kids from North Tonawanda and Niagara Falls High School about race relations. Our second language teacher and musical director for the plays, Tom Vitello, is going to be playing on Broadway. Congratulations, Tom. I wanted to thank Rick Corella, Tom Fisher, and our grant writer that you approve every reorganization meeting, Marie Battaglia. Another grant yesterday or 2 days ago, $3.5 million, 5 years, mental health, and here are the 4 pillars. Recruiting students to get into mental health professions. Niagara Falls High School is already purposed for that with their PS2 program. Number 2, paid, listen to this, paid internships for school psychologists, social workers, and counselors. We have, without any secret, had some difficulty getting social workers. Now we're going to be able to pay graduate students a stipend and ask them to come, then hopefully allure them to come and work for us. But they can get paid stipends out of this grant, continued trauma training, and then outside mental health services for students and mentoring. $3.5 million for the next 5 years. Rick, thanks to you and your team for doing that. It's outstanding. On a sad note, we started the year with a couple of difficult deaths. I know they've asked Mr. Petrosi at next week's meeting to adjourn. We lost a student from North Tonawanda who I consider our sister or brother school. Of course, we lost our vendor for our apparel, Dan the Man, today. Dan was with us a long time, and a gentleman that works with us quite frequently, Lomax Barnes, his son passed away as well. So those are sad things, and with your permission, I think they're very honored when this board recognizes them at the end of the meeting. Members of the board, that is all of the updates I have. I just wanted to say one last thing. I watched, probably because I had time last week, I watched with interest the snow removal efforts and conversations and arguments in different places. And one of the reasons why it doesn't happen here is because of that team sitting over there and of the principals in the school. We argue, we disagree, but we work together to get things done for the kids of the city and the school district property. So just made me more proud of the team that we have over there and the board, because again, we don't agree and we won't, but we get it done, and we get it done with dignity and class. Mr. Petrosi, I say thank you, and remember again, the meeting is on Wednesday, the 18th, not the 17th. Thank you.
Okay, saying that, Mark, I think we covered everything. Yep. We need an executive.
I do. I would like to read, because I know there's a naughty and nice list now for executive sessions. I guess I'm not on either of the list, we were not, but in an effort to get on the nice list, Mr. Wolf, if you're listening or watching this on tape delay, I would ask the members of this board to go into executive session to discuss and only discuss 4 contracts that are governed by the Taylor Law. I'll even read the unions of the contracts. They are STU, which stands for substitutes, ASC, which stands for administrators, NIAS, which stands for non-instructional administrators, and NFT, which is for the teachers. So, Mr. Wolf, I hope you're watching, and I hope that's 1 point for me on the good list. That's what we'd need an executive session for.
Thank you, Mark. May I have a motion in a second, please? For a motion, Nick, and a second by Mr. Bass. We're going to executive session for those reasons.
No action after, okay? No action after.
Mr. Lawyer. Mr. Bass. Yes. Mr. Kabisi. Yes. Mr. Goodell. Yes. Mr. Barretto. Yes. And show me as a yes. We have 5 yeses, no nos. Okay? Oh, sorry, 6. Apologize. Didn't do well in there.
We noticed by the prices of shirts that...
Good night, everybody.
I love him. He made me a Republican. What can I tell you?